This podcast is intended for educational purposes only. Please check out Natural Care Midwifery and our podcast page for our full disclosure. Well, welcome back to another episode of More About Birth. We are here with our host, Shannon Bennett, and her co-host, Angie Hansen. And boy, do we have a topic today, folks. Shannon, so tell us about what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, so you know how there's just some things in the birth world that are taboo to talk about, but everybody wants to talk about them?
Like just about everything if you're a guy?
No.
Yeah.
So Angie and I had this idea, and so today we're going to talk about poop.
What?
It's the poop podcast.
It's the poop
I've been
podcast.
waiting for it.
Yeah, so I remember when we talked about this idea the very first time, and I felt then like I feel right now.
He's like, no, I don't think so. So just plug your ears, Keith. So seriously, there's a lot of poop involved in pregnancy, labor, immediate postpartum, the first couple weeks. There's a lot.
I mean, poop is just kind of a big part of our life in general, right? Poop
True.
happens.
We deal with it daily. Deal with it a lot at birth.
Hopefully you deal with it daily.
The concentration of this podcast will be on poop during labor and immediate postpartum, but it starts before that. I mean, we have stuff going on in pregnancy. What do we hear all the time from moms over and over again?
Yeah, well, it's really common to be constipated because of the progesterone and all the extra hormones that are on board that make your digestion more sluggish.
So they kind of like all these hormones relax the smooth muscles. So normally they're tight and they can squeeze and move things through. During pregnancy, they're really relaxed. You should see the look on your face.
I'm just trying to think of an intelligent question.
Don't even go there. So you have
on.
this motility that has slowed down because of all the hormones relaxing everything. They just don't squeeze it.
So it's not the baby's fault. You're not going to blame.
Although
It's always the baby's fault.
baby's fault. Your uterus grows, baby grows, and everything that was down here gets squished up here until your intestines are in a space about this big where they used to have about that much
In your
space.
throat.
So between the intestines being squished, the motility that's less, the fact that a lot of moms, especially in early pregnancy, crave carbs. And what do carbs do to your digestion?
Yeah, it just tends to plug you up more when you're having more like white rice and white flour and the yummy, tasty, feel-good things.
The things that moms crave when they're nauseous. Plus,
Yeah.
they're not drinking enough water because it's not staying down well.
Right.
Recipe for constipation. So what can they do about it?
Well, we tell people all the time about CalMag. So calcium, magnesium, liquid. It's easy to take. It's great for digestion. And
Works well together.
yeah, and the magnesium especially is going to help you poop. It helps. It's a stool softener. And
Totally safe.
it's totally safe. You just take it until you get to the right consistency that you want to be at. And
Did you just say
Yeah,
consistency?
did you just say consistency?
in every sense of the
Can
word.
I just get this off my
Are you
chest right now?
consistent?
I have two things to say right now. One, I just want to say I'm sorry to all of you guys who are listening. And number two, I've never been happier that I'm behind the camera than I am today.
All right. Moving on.
Moving on, huh?
Hey, so yay for magnesium. It's your friend, people.
Yes.
It really is your friend.
Fiber and lots of fluids. So your body can't eliminate well without enough fluids in the intestinal walls. Fiber. Give us some ideas of some fibrous foods.
Well, fruits and vegetables for sure. That's the best kind of thing that you can do for yourself. But then also whole
Especially
grains.
raw.
Yeah. Get that
What
good
about
fiber.
beans? Beans are a great fiber. In fact,
Beans are
you might
great.
be able to even eat a quarter cup of beans every day, and that might take care of the problem.
Now, wait a minute.
Yes, the only problem with fiber is that you have to complement it with enough water or it's going to constipate you even more. So
Water.
Taking a bunch of fiber and not getting enough fluids, that's not going to help you.
Yep.
So
You might be better off a little CalMag in early pregnancy when you're feeling kind of nauseous. The other thing that you can do is the good old prune juice. little bit of prune juice goes a long ways. You can even go.
Sure.
You can even go to the store and buy one of those little pots of baby food prunes, like the pureed prunes. Just try a few
That
tablespoons
sounds
of that.
really terrible.
It's yummy.
That sounds
It's
disgusting.
yummy.
So I have one more thing on my mind, and that's this. If our subscriptions go up because of this podcast, I'm going to be shocked.
I wouldn't be shocked.
I wouldn't. Everyone wants to talk about poop.
Why is
But
it such a
nobody
hot...
asked.
Okay, so can we just get that... Let's get this out of the air. Why is it such a popular topic?
You can't
Because
even say the
everybody
word.
does it.
You can't even say the word.
It's a huge part of your life. What's the quote? To eat is human, to digest is divine. So
Are you?
Is that a quote?
it's a quote from
Somewhere.
that-
somewhere.
doesn't have-
I'll look it up on the break. Yeah, because if you're, it's like a key sign of your health, right? How often you're pooping, what it's like.
Does it float or does it sink?
These are all really,
Well, okay, so
important keys
the
to your
color.
health.
In honesty, I've heard Shannon talk about it when she teaches and stuff that the baby's poop is important, the color and what happens.
It's
right
all
after birth.
important. It's important to keep it moving. It's important to
Wow.
make it the right consistency.
See?
So let's talk about poop in labor. So the number one question I get from people who have never had a baby before, moms and dads alike, is what if I poop in labor?
Yeah, that's why this is such
We're
a
like,
hot
what if you
topic, because
didn't?
everyone that's going to have a baby, like this is going to come up in their mind prenatally. Like it just is.
So is that because they feel they feel exposed, or
I mean, it's not something you usually do in front of other people, right?
Yeah. It's one of those
But
very
having-
private
humbling.
things that you
having
don't
a
even.
baby isn't
It's
something you would do
humbling.
in public either, except for there are midwife
Well,
and
and
people
you feel
there.
like you need assistance to have
Yeah,
a baby. You don't need
exactly.
assistance to poop, right?
Exactly.
You do
So-
it in private in a closed room on a special
So
throne.
you're saying this?
And a baby's not offensive. A baby's like, yay, the baby's here. But poop is like, it smells, and you just don't want other people being up in your
and you poop.
face. in
But
your
isn't it
poop.
true that once you're so this must be a conversation before the birth, because you said when moms are having babies, they just don't, at that point they don't care, they just want the baby out.
Most moms don't care. However, we do have moms who apologize every time it happens.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
stop apologizing. We get excited.
Now wait a
because-
minute, that's a little strange.
No, listen here. Anything that's in the way has to come out in order for the baby to get out, right?
Yeah.
That baby's head's clear down here like this. It's pushing on your rectum. So clearly anything in the way is going to have to come out.
Yep.
And when we see poop, we're excited because we know that that baby is down that low, pressing on the rectum, and it's just a matter of minutes usually till that baby appears. So the midwives get excited.
Yeah.
Obviously,
We do.
obviously a different world than I'm from.
Different world. Although I do remember
Uh-oh.
a husband with
Never.
our first child, Keith.
What? I can't remember that. I am 58
This
years
husband?
The only one I've ever had. No, listen.
This
We
husband.
get home with this new baby, and I'm humiliated enough that he saw me like that, right? Because I'm young and want him to not look at me that way.
And in all fairness, when we were first married in those years, I was like very sensitive and I was very careful with the stuff that I said, of course.
Baloney. No, we get home and he's telling somebody about the birth, and he goes, yeah, she actually gave birth twice. And I looked at him, I'm like, what? And he goes, you gave birth to a turd before you gave birth to the baby, and I wanted to die.
Oh, that doesn't
You're
sound like
talking
me.
about the person that didn't even want to use the bathroom with him even in the house when we first got married.
Yeah.
I was that shy.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
well, I just
I was
lost
devastated.
some fans. I just lost some fans out there. So,
But I've forgiven you. It's
Okay,
okay.
thank
I'm
you.
totally comfortable with
hey, if I
with
said that, it was totally in fun, and I should have never said it. So I officially apologize.
You're forgiven.
Yeah, okay.
He has a weird sense of humor. anyways.
Angie's reading the look on my face, so you look at her face and you'll know if I was being sincere or
looking
not.
humble
'cause
right
I'm
now.
embarrassed.
Looking humble right now.
Shame on you.
So it's something that has to happen. We're excited when it happens.
Yeah. What? I mean, I just think that, when we talk to people about it and we're talking about it either in birth classes or prenatally, it honestly, birth itself is a humbling process.
Oh, yeah.
You are
no inhibition.
To some degree you are exposed, and you want to have people around you that you trust. And with a poop aside, even without the poop, it's just a really intense experience. You come to the end of yourself pretty much in every way, physically, emotionally, mentally. And so this is just another piece of that you have to deal with. You honestly do. 90%
of the time it happens. There's an occasion when it doesn't, because the body naturally starts to clean out, and the stool becomes loose in early labor just to help clear everything out of the way. That doesn't always happen. So I would say about 90% of the time there is some poop involved.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's lots of things you're saying in the whole birth process that are just, it exposes you from body image, right, into the fact that you have people around you, and this experience could happen at a hospital, it could happen at home. You got people coming in hospital. It was crazy how many nurses and people came in and out, and out. That was crazy for me to experience that with you. But yeah, so in reality, this is just one of those things, but probably the least talked about. Is that true? It
is the least talked about because people are embarrassed by it. Although this generation, like people 30 and under, seems like they're a little more comfortable with the topic.
Social media.
My generation, you didn't even ask about it. In fact, you went to the hospital and you automatically got an enema.
Yeah.
They didn't even deal with it because it was thought back then that it was a horrible, terrible thing for your baby to be exposed to its mother's, poop.
Right.
So nowadays we have research that tells us what? Just the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, that it's actually part of the good bacteria that baby gets coming out through the birth canal, and it's actually not a problem.
Nope. It colonizes their gut with really good things. And in fact, I just read something this morning when I was looking it up that they're finding that with all the high rate of cesarean section, I can't talk. The high cesarean rate, babies not being born vaginally and exposed to vaginal secretions, mama's poop, that there's a lot more autoimmune disorders. There's a lot more type 1 diabetes. There's a lot more asthma and allergies.
Yeah, it's not good for your immune system.
So don't be afraid of it. Actually, consider it something that your baby needs.
Yeah. Yep. And so, it is, again, just part of that whole surrender process. You have to let it go. And honestly, some people have to let go of their fear of pooping to get the baby out.
Yes. You can actually impede your labor with that fear because it tightens everything up because you're afraid
to push.
To poop. So you don't relax and push.
And I've heard you on other podcasts describe that whole process of pushing that you said it's very similar. It feels to women, it feels very similar. So in their mind, they could be thinking, because they're saying.
Right. And women tell us all the time, I have to go to the bathroom. We'll tell them, are you feeling pressure like you have to poop? Yeah, I need to go to the bathroom. And we'll be like, nope, that's your baby's head. It's going to feel like you're pooping a watermelon. That's the exact
Do they ever get mad at you
feeling.
When it's not the baby and it really is? The dirty?
The dirty? You can't
the terrible, dirty, awful.
say the word.
Trust me, by the time I'm done editing this podcast, I will be perfectly fine with talking about poop.
There you go. See, it's helping people already.
We're going to go to a break real quick. And when we get back, we have a funny story to tell you about.
Okay. Well, that's the first half of More About Birth. And I can tell you this, I think it's going to get more and more interesting as we go. So stay with us after the break. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead. You might as well make these women realize that this is the most popular podcast. We'll see you after the break. This podcast is intended for educational purposes only. Please check out Natural Care Midwifery and our podcast page for our full disclosure. This podcast is intended for educational purposes only. Please check out Natural Care Midwifery and our podcast page for our full disclosure. Well, welcome back from the break. This is Shannon laughing, and now she's coughing. Thanks for staying with us here. This is the second half of what? More about
poop.
It's
the poop
You're
podcast.
gonna put that in the. Oh man, tell me the blueberry story.
Blueberry.
It's not my story.
Don't eat. Well, I'll tell it.
I don't know. It's yours.
Okay, so seriously, there's poop in the birth pool, right?
Yeah.
It happens.
It does.
It's not a problem. We have a little fish net. In fact, the people at Walmart, I'm waiting for somebody to ask me one day when I go through the checkout line with 20 of those little 5-inch, aquarium fish nets. I'm waiting for somebody to ask me why I need that many or what they're
You're
for.
selling fishnets on the side.
And I'm going to tell them and just record their reaction.
Is
it's
this
for
like
the birth pool.
Do you give them to the mamas after the baby's born?
A souvenir.
A souvenir?
You're
No,
awful.
we throw them away as far as we can.
I just want everybody to know this is not a fish that we're talking about here in this podcast, in case you're wondering.
Where's our board?
Typically, when there's poop in labor in the birth pool, we can just take that old fish net, scoop it up. We always have a double layered garbage can, and we put it on the inside layer and cover the outside
We're
layer.
prepared.
So there's no offensive odor.
Got you covered.
No one has to, be uncomfortable any more than they already are. It's not a problem. However, it becomes a problem when they don't float like fish and you can't catch.
Slippery little sucker.
Is that why you have to buy multiple nets? Sorry, folks. This is what I was afraid of when we said we were going to do this podcast.
I have to tell you a story. So, Mama, if you hear this and you think it might be you, it could be.
No, you've done hundreds of births, right? I've heard some of these
500
stories.
births, right? But this particular one.
That was awesome. If you think this might be you, it could be. So be embarrassed.
The names have been changed of the fruit to protect the innocent. Or the guilty. I love you.
Man.
Don't go blueberry picking the night before you go into labor, please. Oh my, you cannot catch blueberry fish in the birth pool. We had to drain the birth pool and start all over. So please, if you're going to go picking fruit the day before labor, don't do
Just
it.
can it.
Well,
Don't do it.
Yeah, you tell people they need to get out and exercise and just do what they normally would do before the baby's born because
Just
it helps
don't
labor.
go picking fruit
So-
or don't eat it.
So, okay. So,
Okay, so what we're saying is we're honestly not big fans of the whole castor oil, 18 million cherries, fruit pie to get contractions going and get this baby
No.
out. Your midwives are not big fans of that.
It makes it really hard to put our hands in there to listen to the baby with the Doppler when there's friends in the pool.
okay, so because it's such a personal topic, what would be a list of things that they should avoid? Because they're concerned about it. That's not a topic.
Too much
Castor
fruit,
oil.
What about-
Castor oil.
Raisins, fruit in general would be a bad thing.
Just
So lots of fiber.
overload on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't try and get labor
Don't
going with
don't start labor that way.
the hot,
please.
spicy food. And seriously, most of the time you have plenty of time to get up to the restroom and use the restroom. It's not a problem. But sometimes you're so hard hit with labor and it's just coming
Right.
that there's no time. The baby starts coming and so does everything else before it. Usually we're excited. This is one incident where we're not so excited because then we have to drain the whole birth pool and refill it. And you may not end up getting to have your water birth because particulate matter is not good for the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Whew.
And we've talked about water birth before and and the fact that, and we had the whole podcast. If people haven't seen that podcast, they can go back because we talked about some of that.
Yeah, we have.
Stuff,
We've
yeah.
mentioned it. But and land births, not a big deal.
Nah.
We just, take whatever's under you and throw it in the trash and put
Right.
something clean under you.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens. So I don't want you to watch this podcast and now be afraid
water birth,
of pooping in labor or afraid of a water birth.
No.
Out of hundreds of births, that was just a one-time thing. Now
just don't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
Don't do it on purpose. Don't do it on purpose.
So water birth is safe.
Water birth
even
is
if
safe.
there is poop in the water.
Yeah, I mean, because your baby's getting all the good gut bacteria that it needs to.
Yeah, and they're not swallowing it. It's not like they're just drinking this in quantity.
They don't breathe.
No.
And typically, even if there is,
so it's just whatever's on their face.
And we rinse mom and baby off before they get out of the birth pool if there's anything that needs rinsed off.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's usually just a few little fish that we need to get with the fish net and throw away.
And you already said the baby's pretty
Not a
well
big deal.
coated when the baby comes out anyway, so
They're good.
yeah.
It's not harmful for them at all.
Yeah.
The only thing it's harmful to is mom's ego.
Yeah, but honestly, I would say, I don't know, half. I don't know the exact number, but just to guess that women don't know that they poop.
They don't even know.
Honestly, because it's like it's all the babies coming and you can't even feel it most of the time.
It's the farthest thing from your mind.
It really is. Yeah, at that point, you just could not care less.
So I guess my goal with this podcast would be for them to get over themselves and just realize it's a normal part of birth.
It's normal.
Relax. Don't let it keep you from pushing.
Your midwives are not going to be traumatized.
No. We might get a good giggle sometimes, but you'll never know about it.
So is this an issue more with first-time moms in water birth or first-time moms in general?
This is every mom.
It's everybody.
Because it's such a personal issue.
Because everybody has bowels, and every baby that passes past the bowels is going to push out whatever's in front of it.
Well, it's not like we don't live in a society that keeps that part of our life very private and very personal.
You know, people used to, but nowadays, I'm telling you, every generation that comes is more loose with the things they talk about and their comfort levels with it.
Yeah.
I grew up in the generation that what happens in the outhouse stays in the outhouse.
I have dads that come in and I'll ask mom, how are your bowels moving? Is everything working well? He'll say, no, she's been really constipated. And I'm like, how do you know? Is this something you talk about daily?
She's probably complaining about it. That's why.
Probably.
It's like, help this woman.
Yeah. Well, hopefully if they're there at the birth, the husband won't ever tell his wife
that she gave birth twice.
Yeah, that she gave birth twice. I don't know how anyone would ever have the audacity to say anything like that.
The cutest story I ever heard, and I don't think you were at this birth, but I had a mom in the birth pool and her husband decided to get in with her. And he's kind of behind her and she's reclined on him. And she's a first-time mama, so you know how we do sometimes. We'll say, just push. It's just like having to poop. Push right there at the bottom right into your bottom because the baby has to come down before it comes out. And so we're telling her, come on, just like a poop. And we're just cheering her on. And all of a sudden he looks over at me and he goes, don't tell her to poop. Like, okay.
Big hint. Okay.
He's like trapped in this birth pool with her,
great.
behind her.
My
dads are great though. I've seen dads totally get the floaters themselves and throw them out.
The generations are changing and the husbands are more engaged. And
they're
I
more
think
involved,
that's really cool. My generation,
more educated.
Yeah, my generation, I always felt like our job was to be in a waiting room until you had home births, and I got to be right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got to participate, which was really cool. I think it was probably more cool because I got put in a waiting room the first time, and then the last time I got to actually be there.
Can you tell how old some of our kids are? It's been 36 years.
Oh, he's an old man.
Yeah.
So after the excitement of the birth has worn off, and then people are dealing with the aftermath with their sore perineum or if they've had stitches. And then it's kind of
there's another fear.
The inhibition all of a sudden all comes back because like that labor rush is gone. And then it's like now nobody wants to ask, am I going to be able to poop after I've had these stitches and what's going to happen? So tell us about that, midwife.
So even with just some what we call skid marks where your perineum, so that tissue that's between the vaginal opening and the anus, there's just a short pad of tissue there. Sometimes it gets skid marks or like a rug burn type. And so it's kind of stingy. And when it stretches, it hurts until it heals after a few days. Excuse me. And then if you've had a few stitches, it's pretty tender. So what I tell moms is you're going to want to make sure you have good fiber, tons of water. I don't usually even recommend a stool softener because I find that they tend to make babies gassy, goes through the breast milk. So you're better off with just lots of fiber, lots of fluids.
Magnesium.
And magnesium again, yeah, the calcium magnesium. So take a tablespoon of that every day. And then I tell them, just go ahead and fold up a few squares of toilet paper. When you have to have that first bowel movement, just kind of hold that against your stitches.
Yeah.
Really gently so that when you do have to go to the bathroom, it's not going to pull your stitches. And that's just enough to make them feel comfortable with having to go to the bathroom because they feel like there's something they can do to prevent that stretchy, pinchy feeling and damage anything.
Right.
So that is a fear, though. People are afraid of that first poop after the baby's born.
Right. Yeah, so just do what you can ahead of time to make that first poop nice and smooth and a smooth process. Good consistency. But yeah, don't worry. You are not going to bust your stitches and rip wide open.
No.
It's not happened.
And also it's really normal. People will call me like 24 or so hours into it, say, I still haven't pooped yet. Is that okay? Is that normal? Am I constipated? And I'm like, nope, totally normal. When you're in labor, your digestion slows down. You're not eating as much. There's just not as much there. And then after the baby, first 24 hours or so, sometimes 48, those intestines and all those hormones that have caused them to be loose and relaxed have to kind of get their groove on again. And it's kind of a process. It's normal to be really gassy and have a lot of just air movement in there and even a little bit of gas pain. And you will have a bowel movement again. It will be fine, but it does take a couple days sometimes. Don't be alarmed.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask about it.
Clearly
we don't mind
we're
talking
not embarrassed.
about it. So.
Okay. Talk to me about the other biggie. People want to know about baby poop.
Baby poop. So the first poop that your baby is going to have is called meconium. And it is that really dark, blackish, tarry, sticky substance that is crazy.
Like glue.
Yes. And I think the midwives that tell their people to oil their baby's bottom up are just genius because I've done it both ways. And when you forget to just douse that bum with some oil.
Like really good.
Like hose it down, like top to bottom. It can be the difference between like a few wipes and a couple minute diaper change to
half
like
the box
30 wipes, 30-minute diaper change, no joke, because that stuff pastes on. It's crazy.
It's like glue.
And it's one of those things that you want to know before the baby's born.
Yeah. In fact, if you're wondering what it even is, like what is meconium? So when your baby's in the womb, your baby is actually swallowing fluids constantly and practicing that swallowing motion. There's skin cells, vernix, that white creamy substance that covers their skin to keep it from getting wrinkly in fluid all those months. There's hair, like that downy soft hair that babies have all over them. And all of this is in the fluid that they swallow. It goes down into the intestines and they're coated with this, that vernix, the meconium is in there.
Yeah.
And I just read the other day, and I didn't know this, why do I keep saying vernix?
Because you were at a birth last night, all night.
And I'm tired. I'm always tired. I live tired. So the meconium, the black tarry poop, it is in the intestines as the baby develops, and that's what keeps those intestines from sticking together like saran wrap.
That's cool.
It keeps them open. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Learn something new every day.
There's got to be a reason for that sticky stuff.
Gotta know.
Yeah. So the meconium, and babies might pass some before labor or during labor, but at any rate, it's usually there for at least the first 24 hours. And usually it starts transitioning when mama's milk comes in. So then when your milk comes in and you're nursing your baby, it's going to start changing to that more common
army greenish, brownish color.
Yeah. It kind of transitions and then usually ends up at that yellowy, what Shannon describes as buttery popcorn-ish smell.
It does not smell like popcorn.
It's golden. It's wonderful.
It
a sign of
have an odor. It doesn't have an odor. It smells
Everybody knows what you're talking about. Every mom that has a breastfed baby knows exactly.
Now, formula or when you start feeding your baby food, that has an odor.
Oh, yeah.
as an odor.
That's different.
So
yeah.
One last thing.
Okay.
I get the question all the time after about 3 days. Mom will say, my baby hasn't pooped for a whole day. What is going on? Newborn babies should be pooping every single day, several times a day. If they're not getting enough food in general. There are exceptions, but that's the general rule. Mm-hmm. After you have an established milk supply, your baby is getting fed regularly, their digestion has its groove on. It's not uncommon for older babies to go just a couple times a week or every other day. Newborn babies should be pooping. If they're not, you need to call your midwife or your care provider, be evaluated for breastfeeding issues.
Yep.
Awesome. And so is there a difference then if they're not breastfeeding as far as, any other issues that they would deal with the poop story here?
Yeah. Formula-fed babies should be going regularly also. Just getting to the nitty-gritties here, your formula-fed baby starts having poop that looks like dry peanut butter, something's up. If your baby is having green poop after that meconium transition, it's turned golden yellow, or you're formula feeding and it's the normal formula-fed color, then if it turns green after that, that's typically tummy trouble.
Yeah.
Or if you're breastfeeding, baby could be getting too much of the foremilk, which is high water content, instead of enough of the hind milk that is high fat content.
Yeah.
So
it can also be a sign of illness too.
Right.
Like they've got a virus
tummy
or
troubles,
something's going on.
Allergy.
So the baby poop will tell a story one way or the other.
tells a story.
Always tells a story.
This is classic.
I remember the first time I went to a naturopathic doctor and I had to fill out this big long form and there was an entire page about your poop.
There's a full section on poop.
Yeah.
And I had asked about it and they told me because it tells a story. We can tell a lot about your health.
Yeah.
So please don't be afraid to ask about poop.
So how can they, if they're watching the video podcast right now or they're listening to the audio podcast, then how can they see the video one, Shannon, and how can they hear the audio one?
Go ahead, Angie.
Do I know about this? No. So More About Birth is on YouTube.
You can access it through our webpage, nc-midwifery.com, which is Natural Care Midwifery webpage.
And you can also look it up just on YouTube.
On YouTube.
More About Birth, Shannon Bennett will take you there.
And then the audio podcast?
There's several platforms, right, for the audio podcast.
Yeah, you got Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, you have Stitcher, you have Spotify. And actually, it's available on a lot of the apps that you can download as well. Because
you can get to it directly from the webpage also under podcasts.
So we don't have a More About Birth website. We just have the podcast page on Natural Care Midwifery and lots of people. So we hope that you enjoyed this podcast about poop. And if you wondered or if you had questions about it, I think this one pretty well covers that story. So thank you again for tuning in to More About Birth. We do really appreciate you. Please subscribe and share this with your friends. And hopefully you'll tune in with us next time on More About Birth.
See you later.
Happy pooping.
This podcast is intended for educational purposes only. Please check out Natural Care Midwifery and our podcast page for our full disclosure.